Amara Vey's boots clanged against the steel floor of Kythera 9. The hatchery's alarms screamed, red lights flashing like fire across the walls. Smoke curled from scorched metal, and the cries of baby dragons cut through the chaos. They were tiny but deadly, no bigger than human toddlers, yet each one carried fire hotter than any furnace she had ever seen. The alien caretakers were screaming too, huddled behind reinforced glass, shaking with fear. No one dared move near the wriggling, clawed creatures. Amara's heart pounded, but she kept her breathing steady. She had trained for this. Human courage was her weapon where the alien's strength failed. She stepped past the scorched console and lowered her visor to protect her eyes from the sparks. One hatchling, its scales shimmering like molten bronze, flared its wings and hissed, sending a wave of heat toward her. Most humans would have run. She didn't. She knew fear was natural, but fear would not solve anything. "These creatures are scared," she muttered under her breath. "They aren't attacking for no reason. They don't understand us yet." The nearest guard tried to restrain a hatchling with a plasma net. The dragon twisted mid-air, letting loose a jet of flame that melted the net instantly. The guard fell back, screaming as the small creature skittered toward a wall of glowing tubes. Amara realized the problem. Brute force wouldn't work. Not here. Not ever. These dragons were untamable by power, but maybe, just maybe, they could be guided. She knelt, lowering herself to the hatchling's level. The others shrieked and snapped their claws as if warning her, yet she didn't flinch. She let her hand hover near the bronze scales, careful not to touch, careful not to provoke. The dragon's tiny eyes fixed on her, curious but wary. She spoke softly, though she knew the aliens wouldn't understand her words. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said. "I want to help." It lunged, a flicker of flame bursting toward her. She sidestepped quickly, the heat scorching her sleeve. Pain flared, but she held herself steady. Humans were fragile, yes. But courage was not about being unhurt. It was about standing when everything around you wanted you to run. Amara noticed something in the hatchling's movement, a pattern in the chaos. Every time she stayed low, it hesitated before striking. Every time she spoke softly, it flickered its wings instead of breathing fire. The key wasn't force. It was attention. Observation. Understanding. The aliens had relied on strength and fear. She relied on patience and human ingenuity. "Cinder," she whispered, naming the hatchling without thinking. It was as good a name as any, and calling it something familiar helped her calm herself. The other hatchlings shrieked and flailed around her, but Cinder froze for a fraction of a second, a small pause that felt like a victory. The smell of burnt metal filled her nose, and her visor fogged slightly from the heat. Sweat dripped down her back, but she didn't move. She had to stay here. If she left, the hatchlings would destroy the entire wing of the station, and the Emperor would never forgive her failure. Survival alone wasn't enough. Humans could endure pain, yes, but they could also think faster, see patterns, act where others hesitated. That was what made them extraordinary. Suddenly, a massive screech split the room. Another hatchling, larger than the rest, flared its wings and knocked over a stack of reinforced crates. Sparks flew, igniting the fuel lines beneath. The floor shuddered, and a small explosion sent smoke curling around Amara's legs. She barely caught herself on a console, chest heaving. Every instinct told her to run, to flee like the aliens around her. But she couldn't. Someone had to try. Someone had to face the fire. She adjusted the settings on her scanner, a small device she had brought to monitor the dragon's heart rates and wing movements. Numbers blinked rapidly, showing her that panic levels were spiking, that the creatures weren't attacking for malice. They were scared, confused, and in pain. If she could calm even one of them, maybe she could reach the rest. Cinder shifted closer, wings twitching. Amara extended her hand slightly, enough to show she meant no harm. The dragon's head tilted, fire simmering in its throat, eyes wide with suspicion. She held her breath. One step closer, one small gesture, and everything could explode. The alarm shrieked again, echoing in the cavernous hall. Sweat and fear mingled in her mouth. Then, slowly, almost impossibly, Cinder's wings lowered. It did not attack. It did not hiss. It just watched her, curious, uncertain, but still alive. Amara's heart leapt, a flicker of hope igniting inside her. She had survived the first strike, and more than survival, she had the chance to turn chaos into trust. She knew this was only the beginning. The Emperor would be watching. The other hatchlings were still wild, still deadly. Every move from now on would test her courage, her intelligence, her humanity. One wrong step, one mistake, and not just her life, but the lives of everyone on Kythera 9, could be lost. She straightened, hands still extended towards Cinder. The dragon blinked, and for the first time, Amara felt the fragile thread of connection. She had taken the first step into impossible odds. The next step, she realized, would demand everything she had, and maybe more than a human should ever be asked to give. And somewhere in the shadows of the hatchery, the other dragons shifted, watching her, waiting. Amara stayed on her knees for several long minutes, watching Cinder's small body tense and relax. Around them, the hatchery was still chaos. Fires flickered across the walls, scorched metal smelled sharp in the air, and the other hatchlings shrieked and snapped. But for the first time she felt a thread of control, fragile but real. Humans could survive fear, adapt, and learn where others only panicked. She had to make that human trait work for her, and for these creatures. She rose slowly, scanning the room. The other hatchlings were unpredictable, flaring fire at random and knocking over equipment. Each one seemed to react to the fear in the room, their little bodies mirroring the chaos around them. Most humans would have retreated to safety by now. Amara didn't even think about it. Retreat wasn't part of her vocabulary. Humans endured, they observed, and they acted. That was what made them extraordinary. Her mind raced, and she began arranging the space. She pulled small barriers from nearby equipment, creating zones for the dragons to move safely without hitting fuel lines or consoles. Then she activated her scanner, projecting soft vibrations in the air, a frequency pattern she had noticed calmed Cinder earlier. It was a gamble, but humans thrived on calculated risks. The first test was another hatchling, larger and faster than Cinder. It lunged at her, wings whipping, teeth snapping. Amara ducked, letting it skim past her shoulder. She had predicted the strike. As the dragon passed, she triggered the vibrational hum. Its aggression faltered. Eyes flicking toward her, it paused midair, confused. That hesitation was all she needed. A small human gesture, a hand extended, calm, steady, was enough to slow its attack. Amara felt a surge of hope, but she didn't smile. Hope could not replace caution. Every moment was dangerous. Every movement could trigger fire or claws. Sweat dripped from her brow, mingling with the soot on her cheeks. The hatchlings were wild, violent, and terrified. But they were learning, and that was because she refused to give up. By the third attempt, she had figured out a pattern. The dragons responded to positioning, not just vibrations. Standing low, facing them at an angle, she became less threatening. Moving quickly made them aggressive. Humans were fragile, but their minds were agile. Amara's intelligence became her armor. She tested each hatchling one by one, watching their reactions, adjusting the vibrations, repositioning barriers. Slowly, she noticed subtle changes, wings fluttering instead of flaring, claws scratching the floor instead of striking, hisses turning into curious chirps. It was exhausting. Hours passed, though Amara had no sense of time. Her arms ached, her back burned from crouching, and her lungs filled with smoke. But she pressed on. Humans could endure fatigue when purpose drove them. Fear, pain, and exhaustion were tools to be managed, not excuses to flee. Each moment she stayed in the room was a moment the hatchlings grew calmer and more responsive. Then came the challenge she hadn't expected. Cinder, previously the calmest, bolted toward the far wall, wings flaring violently. The alarm bell screamed. Sparks erupted where it hit a console, and a small fire started near the fuel lines. Amara's heart jumped. Every instinct screamed to run. But she couldn't abandon it. Humans weren't just brave, they were moral, and morality demanded action. She sprinted, dodging flames and leaping over molten debris. Cinder hissed, fire licking the walls, and for a second, Amara feared it might strike her. But she didn't panic. She had studied its behavior. With a low whistle and an extended arm, she mirrored its posture, head down, body low, showing submission and calm. The dragon froze. Its wings twitched, smoke curling from its nostrils. Slowly, carefully, Amara approached. She could feel the heat radiating from its scales, feel the sharp tension in its muscles. And then, unbelievably, Cinder let her touch it. Just a paw on her arm. It trembled, shivered, but it didn't attack. Amara felt tears sting her eyes, not from fear but relief and awe. A human had survived, and more than that, had begun to win the trust of a creature stronger, faster, and far more dangerous than she was. The other hatchlings watched silently, their sharp eyes tracking every movement. For the first time, it felt like they were considering her, weighing her presence, learning from it. Amara realized something critical. Humans were fragile, yes, but that fragility allowed them to think, to adapt, to empathize. The dragons couldn't anticipate strategy, they reacted. She could guide them. She could lead them without chains. Just as she straightened, preparing to guide Cinder back to the containment area, A loud metallic bang echoed through the hatchery. One of the alien caretakers had accidentally triggered a support beam, sending it crashing toward the floor. Sparks flew, and another hatchling bolted toward the impact zone, wings spread, fire flickering dangerously. Amara's heart leapt. She had only a second to act. Her instincts, training, and courage collided. She darted forward, placing herself between the hatchling and the falling beam. Using her small shield, she deflected the worst of the impact, grabbing the dragon just in time to pull it out of the danger zone. Smoke, heat, and sparks surrounded them both. She gasped for air, lungs burning. Cinder, shaking but unharmed, looked up at her, eyes wide and almost grateful. Amara realized the true challenge had only begun. The dragons were learning, but the environment was still lethal. Every moment demanded attention. Every decision could cost lives. Humans had survived this far, not through strength but through courage, intelligence, and heart. And if she could do it once, maybe, just maybe, she could do it again. But as she looked around the hatchery, smoke thick in the air, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. A shadow moving in the corner, larger and faster than any hatchling she had seen. Its eyes glowed, and it was coming for her. Amara's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just another hatchling. This was a predator, testing the human who dared to defy the Emperor's chaos. Her pulse quickened. One wrong move now and it could all end. She swallowed hard, clenched her jaw, and prepared to face it. Humans were fragile, but they could be unstoppable. And this was the moment she would have to prove it. Amara's chest heaved, sweat stinging her eyes as she stared at the massive shadow in the corner of the hatchery. The creature was enormous, wings wide, scales like molten iron, eyes glowing with a fierce intelligence. It was older than the hatchlings, sharper, more dangerous. Every instinct screamed to run, but human courage was not about instincts, it was about choice. She had survived small dragons. She could survive this. She backed slowly, keeping her hands visible, her voice calm. "I don't want to hurt you," she said, though she knew it would not understand her words. The massive hatchling tilted its head, wings twitching, smoke curling from its nostrils. It growled low, vibrating the floor beneath her boots. Every other hatchling scattered, some flaring fire, some scrambling into corners. Cinder stayed close to her side, small but brave, watching the predator with wide eyes. Amara realized brute force would not work. No human could match this creature physically. What humans always had, was intelligence, creativity, and the ability to see patterns others missed. She scanned the hatchery, noting the barriers, the scanners, the glowing panels she had arranged. A plan began to form. Humans could not fight this creature, they could outthink it. She activated her handheld scanner and projected a low-frequency hum, the same one that had calmed Cinder. The massive hatchling snarled at first, shaking the air with its roar. Then its head tilted as if it was curious. Amara held her breath. Humans could survive fear, but they could also turn fear into opportunity. She moved slowly, testing the boundaries. Each step was calculated, precise. Every movement had to communicate calm, not aggression. The hatchling lunged suddenly. Amara ducked, rolling aside, but she noticed something critical. It lunged toward her hand, not her body. It was testing, not attacking. The creature was intelligent. It wanted to know if she was a threat, and humans had the ability to communicate without words. She extended her hand slowly, fingers splayed, showing she meant no harm. The dragon froze mid-lunge. That moment was her chance. She grabbed a small, portable shield and angled it to deflect any flame. Then she triggered the vibrational pulses again, modifying them with slight shifts in rhythm. Humans could improvise instantly. The dragon recoiled slightly, then lunged again, but she mirrored its movement this time, crouching, lowering her body. It hesitated, wings twitching in confusion. Humans could adapt faster than anything that relied on instinct. Amara realized she needed more than calm and observation. She needed structure, a system that could guide even this massive hatchling without harming it. She began pulling the barriers together, creating a narrow path across the hatchery. She marked safe zones with soft lights and arranged heat panels that radiated warmth without triggering panic. Humans could innovate under pressure, turning danger into controlled opportunity. The hatchling hissed, smoke curling from its nostrils. Its tail whipped the floor, knocking over crates. Amara ignored the panic rising in her chest. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, one careful foot after another. Each movement was a signal, a lesson. The creature followed, testing, probing, unsure. Humans could teach, even to beings far stronger and faster than themselves. Cinder scampered ahead, demonstrating calm behavior, and the massive hatchling imitated, one hesitant step, then another. Amara felt a surge of hope. Intelligence and patience could overcome instinct. Humans could survive impossible odds not by brute strength, but by outthinking the universe itself. She moved alongside them, guiding each step, adjusting the vibrations, correcting missteps without anger or fear. The hatchling lunged toward a fire panel suddenly. Amara reacted instinctively, throwing her shield in front of it, redirecting the flames harmlessly to the side. Her human fragility was evident. One wrong move could burn her alive, but her courage and quick thinking turned danger into opportunity. Humans could survive fire if they remained calm, clever, and fearless. By the time the massive hatchling reached the end of the path, its breathing was heavy but controlled. It no longer flared wings or snapped claws wildly. Humans could teach even the untamable self-control, one calculated choice at a time. Amara's pulse raced, exhaustion burning through her, but she didn't falter. This was what humans did. They adapted, survived, and transformed the impossible into reality. Then came the real test. The Emperor's sensors on Kythera 9 registered the activity. A warning blared. The hatchery's walls were nearing structural overload. The massive hatchling could break free and destroy the entire station. Amara realized she had seconds to act. Fear pressed in like a weight, but she had already faced worse. Humans could act decisively in the face of annihilation. She ran forward, shielding the hatchling with her body while guiding it toward the containment field. Sparks rained down and a panel collapsed nearby, sending fire lashing across the floor. She shouted, whistled, used every signal she had taught, and somehow, against impossible odds, the dragon followed. The containment field activated just in time, encasing the massive hatchling safely, shaking the floor with its frustration but alive. Amara collapsed on her knees, chest heaving, sweat and soot streaking her face. Around her, the smaller hatchlings chirped and fluttered, now calm, some circling her in cautious curiosity. Cinder nudged her hand, scales warm and trembling. She had done it. Human courage, intelligence, and morality had turned chaos into order. But even as she caught her breath, Amara's mind raced. The Emperor would be watching. The hatchlings were learning faster than expected. And if she could control one massive dragon, the others would grow stronger, smarter, and more dangerous every day. The game had changed. She rose slowly, scanning the hatchery. Sparks still drifted through the air, smoke thick, alarms still blaring. Humans had survived. Humans had triumphed. But the real challenge, training the untamable, surviving the Emperor's scrutiny, and keeping every life alive, was only beginning. A shadow shifted in the corner again. One of the older hatchlings had not moved into containment. Its eyes glowed with a quiet, calculated intelligence. Amara's jaw tightened. The next step would demand more courage, more ingenuity, and more risk than she had ever faced. Humans could survive fire, chaos, and fear, but could they survive what was coming next? The high-gravity flight dome loomed ahead, a vast arena of spinning turbines, jagged platforms, and walls of glowing energy. Amara's boots echoed across the metal walkway as she stepped into the chamber, heart hammering. The Emperor's test was brutal. Release the hatchlings here in this deadly arena, and see which would survive. Most humans would have fled, but humans thrived where others cowered. Courage, intelligence, and sheer determination made them formidable. And Amara had all three. The hatchlings surged forward the moment the doors opened, wings flaring, teeth snapping, fire jets igniting the air around them. Smaller dragons zipped through the gaps between spinning turbines, their claws sparking against metal. Larger ones, including Cinder and the massive hatchling she had just tamed, flared in confusion, nearly knocking over platforms. The air was thick with smoke, heat, and chaos. Amara inhaled sharply, ignoring the burn in her lungs. Her first step was survival. The next was control. Humans could think faster than instincts allowed. She had to guide them or they would destroy themselves, and her. She raised her scanner, projecting the low-frequency hum that had worked in the hatchery. The smaller hatchlings faltered mid-air, twitching, wings lowering slightly. It was a start. Humans could teach order in the middle of chaos. She darted forward, weaving between turbines as a jet of fire streaked past. Cinder followed, wings flapping against the high gravity, keeping pace with uncanny precision. Another hatchling swerved directly at her, claws aimed to strike. Amara rolled to the side, using the momentum to nudge it toward a safe platform. Her actions were fast, precise, and fearless. Humans could survive danger because they could adapt instantly, make life-and-death decisions in a heartbeat. The massive hatchling she had tamed earlier hesitated at the edge of a collapsing platform. Amara ran to it, calling softly, vibrating the platform with a gentle hum. The creature flinched, then stepped back cautiously. Humans could communicate without words, even with creatures far stronger than themselves. She gestured with her arms, mirroring their movements, and the dragon followed. Step by step she guided it across the deadly gaps. A fire jet erupted beneath another hatchling, sending sparks raining across the walkway. Amara leapt, extending her arms, catching it just before it hit the floor. Its wings beat frantically, but she held it steady, coaxing calm with soft whistles and vibrations. Her human fragility was apparent. One burn, one misstep, and she could be incinerated, but courage and intelligence made her unstoppable. Humans could bend risk to their advantage using thought and instinct together. The arena shifted. Turbines spun faster, platforms tilted unpredictably. A hatchling panicked and skidded toward the edge, claws scraping the metal, fire shooting into the air. Amara lunged, grabbing its tail, swinging it back to safety. Sparks scorched her sleeve, heat singed her hair, but she didn't hesitate. Humans could endure pain while protecting others. Fear did not stop them, it sharpened their focus. Cinder flitted above her shoulder, wings brushing her neck. The massive hatchling followed her lead, mirroring her movements through the chaos. Amara's mind raced, calculating angles, timing each move, predicting reactions. She could not fail. The Emperor was watching, and every second counted. Humans were fragile, yes, but they could survive situations no one else could even comprehend. One hatchling veered toward a collapsing turbine. Amara shouted, pivoted, and extended her shield, creating a barrier. Sparks ricocheted, slicing the air dangerously close to her face. She grabbed the hatchling mid-air, its claws scraping against her arms, and guided it to safety. She barely had time to breathe before another creature lunged. Humans could multitask fearlessly when purpose demanded it. The climax came suddenly. A massive platform tilted violently, sending Cinder and the largest hatchling teetering above the spinning turbines below. Amara sprinted, calculating each step with precision. She leapt, catching the tail of the massive hatchling with one hand while extending her other to stabilize Cinder. Sparks rained down, the roar of turbines deafening, heat blistering her skin. Every second was life or death. Every decision mattered. Humans could survive impossible odds because they refused to be ruled by instinct alone. Amara's courage, intelligence, and calm decisiveness guided the dragons safely onto a stable platform. They trembled, breathing heavily, but they were alive. She collapsed beside them, chest heaving, sweat dripping from every strand of hair. The arena had been conquered, not by strength but by humanity. Humans could think, adapt, and act where brute force failed. She looked up at the energy walls of the dome. The alarms had stopped. The dragons had survived. Cinder nuzzled her hand, scales hot and trembling. The massive hatchling lowered its head, almost respectfully, following her gaze. The Emperor had set the test, but humans had passed it in a way no one had expected. Courage, intelligence, and morality had turned chaos into victory. And yet, as the adrenaline faded, Amara knew the final challenge was not over. The Emperor's eyes watched every movement. The hatchlings would continue to grow stronger, smarter, more unpredictable. Humans had survived today, but survival alone was not enough. They had to shape the future. Humans could not only endure, they could lead, teach, and redefine the rules of a dangerous universe. Amara rose slowly, brushing soot from her sleeves. Her heart still pounded, but her eyes were sharp, determined. The dragons followed her gaze, waiting for the next command, trusting her. Humans could forge hope in the most impossible places. They could tame chaos itself. But even in this moment of triumph, a flicker of movement at the far end of the dome caught her eye, a shadow larger than any hatchling, moving silently, watching her and the dragons. Amara's jaw tightened. The test had been survived, but the real challenge, the Emperor's true measure, was just beginning. She clenched her fists, a smile flickering on her soot-streaked face. Humans could face fear, danger, and impossible odds, and they could rise above them. And she would prove it again and again. The hatchery was quiet now, but the air still smelled of smoke and scorched metal. Amara Vey leaned against the reinforced wall, chest heaving, muscles trembling from exhaustion. Every hatchling, from the smallest spark-winged creature to the massive dragon she had tamed, rested in cautious calm. No fire, no snapping claws, no shrieking, just careful observation, their amber and bronze eyes following her every move. Humans could endure danger, yes, but they could also inspire trust in beings far beyond their strength. That was the gift she had given them. Cinder nudged her hand gently, scales warm beneath her palm. She smiled, the weight of relief mixing with pride. A tiny gesture, but it carried meaning. Humans weren't just survivors, they were teachers, guides, and heroes. The other hatchlings chirped softly, circling her, curious yet wary. She had proven something fundamental. Courage, intelligence, and patience could conquer what brute force never could. The Emperor's monitors flickered, signaling his presence. Amara didn't need to look. She could feel the scrutiny, cold and calculating. Most humans would have frozen under such an omnipresent gaze. Most humans would have trembled. But she stood tall, arms still slightly outstretched, heart steady. Humans were fragile, yes, but that fragility allowed them to see, to think, and to act where instinct alone failed. She had done what no alien caretaker had dared. Slowly, the Emperor's hologram flickered to life above the hatchery, a towering figure clad in ceremonial armor, eyes glowing with quiet judgment. "You have succeeded," he said, voice resonating like steel. "Yet you were not expected to. The hatchlings are alive, and calmer than any report predicted. Explain yourself." Amara straightened, shoulders squared. Her voice was steady. "These creatures are not untamable," she said simply. "They are frightened. Confused. They react to fear, to aggression, to chaos. Humans survive by thinking, by observing, and by showing courage in ways instinct cannot match. I did not fight them, I guided them. I earned their trust." The Emperor's expression remained unreadable. For a moment, silence stretched, the weight of judgment pressing down. Then he inclined his head slightly. Humans were clever. They survived by adapting. They were brave beyond measure. And he could not deny that courage, intelligence, and morality could achieve what brute strength could not. "Very well," he said finally. "They will remain under your guidance. You will continue their training, and your methods will be observed for the future." He vanished, leaving a quiet hum behind. Amara exhaled, relief flooding through her, but it was not the relief of escaping danger, it was the satisfaction of changing a system that had believed humans powerless. Amara knelt, brushing soot from Cinder's scales. "You're safe now," she whispered. The hatchling blinked slowly, tilting its head as if it understood. She glanced around at the others. Each had calmed in response to her courage and guidance. Humans could transform fear into learning, and chaos into cooperation. The thought filled her chest with warmth. Still, she knew the work was not over. The hatchlings would grow, stronger and faster, testing every lesson she had taught. And the Emperor would continue to watch, measuring each success and each mistake. Humans could survive almost anything, but thriving required intelligence, courage, and unwavering determination. She had all three and she would not fail. Hours passed as she reorganized the hatchery, repairing damage and reinforcing barriers. She observed the dragon's movements, noting small changes in behavior, documenting patterns that would guide her future training. Humans could endure exhaustion because purpose drove them. Every small observation was a victory. Every minor success was proof that even the impossible could be achieved through method, patience, and heart. A small hatchling clambered onto her shoulder, chittering softly. Amara laughed, exhausted but genuine. Humans could form bonds where no one else could, bridging gaps of fear and instinct. That bond, trust born from courage and compassion, was the most powerful thing she had created. Humans were fragile, yes, but their hearts could move mountains. Later, as the station settled into quiet, Amara stood at the observation window, looking out at the swirling gas giant below. Sparks still lingered in the hatchery's corners, a reminder of the chaos that had threatened them. But she had faced it. Humans had faced it. And they had prevailed. Humans were not just participants in this universe, they were catalysts, capable of courage and ingenuity no other species could match. Cinder perched beside her, tail curling around her arm. Amara stroked its head, feeling its warmth. She thought of all the moments that could have ended in failure, each leap of faith, each calculated risk, every instant of danger. She had survived. More than that, she had led, taught, and transformed. Humans could endure fire, chaos, and fear. Humans could tame even the untamable. The hatchling's eyes reflected hers as she smiled. They had learned to trust, to respond, and to respect, not through fear but through courage and intelligence. Humans could inspire the impossible. Humans could shape the future. And today, in the chaos of Kythera 9, humans had done exactly that. Amara exhaled, letting herself relax for the first time in hours. But the shadow of the Emperor's gaze reminded her that vigilance would always be necessary. Humans survived not because danger disappeared, but because they rose above it time and time again. She straightened, looking at the dragons with renewed determination. Tomorrow would bring more challenges. Bigger dragons. Faster tests. Unseen dangers. But humans would survive them. Humans would guide, inspire, and endure. Humans would shine. And Amara Ve knew deep in her heart that no challenge, no fire, no shadow, no emperor, would ever break what humans were capable of. For in a universe built for the strong, humans had proven themselves unstoppable.